Welcome to a chilling journey where darkness creeps through the quiet streets of West Memphis, Arkansas. I'm Tootie Cream Files, and today we're going to dive into the story of the West Memphis Three, three boys found dead under mysterious circumstances, a case that shook the nation, left citizens bewildered, police stumped, and public opinion in constant debate for decades. Imagine a Friday afternoon in May 1993. The sun has just shyly set behind the dense trees. The familiar sounds of small town, the honking of trucks, the sounds of children running, are suddenly interrupted by the terrible news. Three boys, ages 8 and 9, are missing. The people are worried, the police are running everywhere. And then, a few hours later, in a remote ditch under the shade of a dense tree, three small bodies are found, naked, cold, and still. Not just a missing person, but a crime scene that haunts people to this day. But before we get into the gruesome details, let's relax a bit. West Memphis is a small town where you can walk around and meet friendly neighbors, a grocery store owner, an old lady feeding her dog, and of course, endless rumors of ghosts and scary stories that children tell each other. And in that seemingly peaceful space, a terrible crime occurred. Prepare yourself. Today's story will make you want to cry, scream, and, if you're lucky, learn some survival tips if you live in a town where everyone is either a neighbor or a murderer. That Friday afternoon, West Memphis was bathed in the pale yellow light of the setting sun. The narrow streets were winding, the trees casting long shadows across the pavement, creating dark patches where even a single wrong step could make your heart beat faster. School had just let out, and the laughter of children was everywhere. Terry, Jason, and Damien, three boys no one expected to disappear, were playing soccer, shouting, and racing home. Their parents thought that in a moment, the three children would appear at their doorstep, throwing down their school bags, telling stories about their schoolwork and their pranks. But the golden light of dusk seemed to be a veil hiding something terrible. When the parents realized that their children had not returned home on time, a simmering anxiety began to spread. At first, they thought it was just a prank, but the worry quickly turned to panic as phones rang. The police were called, and neighbors began searching the alleys and surrounding woods. The peace of the small town was gone in an instant. The community was in shock. The West Memphis police, accustomed to dealing with small cases like lost bicycles or escaped chickens, were suddenly faced with a case of unprecedented magnitude. They went from street to street, from alley to alley, asking every neighbor, every passerby. The initial clues were almost non-existent. No trace of strangers, no screams, just darkness and an invisible fear. As the hours passed, the anxiety and tension increased exponentially. People gathered at the train station, at the grocery store, sharing all sorts of theories, from the three boys being lost to the more terrifying theories that no one wanted to say. And then the bad news arrived. The three boys had been found. The sight shocked everyone. Three bodies, naked, lying under a layer of rotting leaves in a shallow ditch, cold and silent. Immediately, the scene became the focus of all investigative activities. Forensic experts, detectives, local police, and the FBI were called in. Every action was meticulously recorded. Every small detail could be the key to solving the case. The space around the scene was sealed off, the press surrounded, and people could not help but be afraid as they stood a few hundred meters away, seeing a scene they would never forget. Meanwhile, the FBI began to gather information. Witnesses, the victims' schedules, family relationships, neighbors, friends, even the children they played with. Everything was analyzed. Every small detail was put into the file. In particular, online conversations, scraps of paper, diaries, everything was considered. They did not miss a single detail, because with a crime like this, one loophole could drag on forever. The story began to unfold in chilling detail. The three boys had been picked out, not randomly. Those around them might. The media was everywhere, from the evening news to the newspapers. Commentators, criminal psychologists, all joined in the hypothesizing. Many hypotheses were put forward, from strangers to acquaintances, from psychological motives to monstrous behavior, from evil curses to dark conspiracies that no one wanted to believe. But the FBI was still patient, step by step, searching for the truth in the chaotic sea of information. The narrator then interjects, both serious and playful. You know, who would have thought that a small town, where everyone greets each other with a smile and hello, could become the center of such a gruesome case? If this were a movie, it would definitely be rated R. But in real life, there are no trailers or warnings. And now, we have to dig into every detail, every clue the FBI has gathered to understand. Why the three boys, why West Memphis, and why a mystery can have the whole country watching the investigators' every move. The investigation begins to spread. The police survey the scene, collect evidence from rotting leaves, broken branches, shoe prints, to personal items. Forensic experts analyze blood samples, traces of DNA. Everything is analyzed in the lab with the utmost concentration. Modern machinery was brought in, from microscopes to fabric analyzers, anything that could reveal traces of the killer. All these details, however small, were gradually connected into a larger picture. The FBI and West Memphis police worked day and night, taking shifts to patrol, interviewing residents, reviewing security cameras, compiling the relationships of the boys, wherever they had appeared, from classrooms to playgrounds to grocery stores. Meanwhile, the town was filled with fear, but also with curiosity. People gathered, gossiped, created ghost stories, unverified rumors, making the atmosphere tense, but also sometimes humorous in a humorous way. As an old man in the coffee shop said, "If these boys get lost, I'm afraid they'll go straight into the haunted hole at the end of the street." Of course, everyone laughed, but inside was real fear. In the following days, the FBI continued to mine clues from people who had been in contact with the three boys. They delved into the victims' personal histories, family relationships, school problems, social connections, anything that might indicate why they had been targeted. Criminal psychologists also joined in, trying to predict the killer's behavior, find patterns, predict his next move if he were still at large. This was more than an investigative story. It was a community story. Little West Memphis had suddenly become the center of national attention. Community meetings, memorial services, newspaper articles featuring the story all added to the pressure on the police and the FBI. But they persisted. They knew that in this grisly darkness, just one right move, one accurate analysis, could bring the killer to light. And so, Chapter 1 ends with the big picture. Three boys are gone. The town is in shock. The FBI is gathering clues, and we are about to embark on a journey to solve this chilling mystery, where every little detail could be the key to solving the case. The narrator interjects again in a tone that is both humorous and suspenseful. Brace yourselves, friends, because we are about to delve into horrifying details, untold mysteries, and the killer's moves that even your worst dreams would not have. The next day, after the terrible afternoon, West Memphis felt like it had just weathered a rainless but painful storm. The dim morning light filtered through the windows, but it did little to lighten the town's somber mood. People walked quietly, their faces filled with worry and tension. They spoke in hushed tones, as if afraid that any word might awaken the darkness lurking around their homes. The FBI and local police set up checkpoints and cordoned off the crime scene. Every little detail was recorded, from broken branches, traces of rotting leaves, muddy tracks on grassy feet, to shoe tracks and torn pieces of cloth. All were valuable clues to reconstruct the horror the boys had endured. Forensic analysts got to work, examining fingerprints, hair samples, bloodstains, anything that might lead to the killer. Meanwhile, the community began to form hypotheses. Some thought it was a stranger, a cold man, with strange behavior that normally only appeared in horror movies. Others began to look around, at familiar faces, wondering, could my neighbor be the killer? The atmosphere was tense and creepily humorous. One old woman even said she would lock all the windows, carry a wooden stick, in case he comes through the window. People laughed, but inside, everyone felt real fear. The FBI began to question those directly involved with the three boys. Parents, teachers, friends, all were asked to recount every little detail. Everyone was worried, because they knew that even one missed detail could let the killer escape. One teacher recalled that Terry had told of a strange man appearing near the schoolyard, but at the time he thought it was just a child's imagination. Now that detail became more important than ever. Investigators also began to exploit the boys' social relationships. Stories about their father, their hobbies, the little secrets they had told their friends, now became important pieces of the puzzle. Damien loved to read detective stories. Jason loved video games. Terry was a hyperactive boy, but always cared about his friends. Those little habits gradually helped the FBI recognize a pattern. The killer did not choose his victims randomly, but based on careful observation and research. A special detail was discovered. In the boys' belongings, the FBI found some scraps of paper with strange symbols, which seemed to be a secret game that the three boys often played together. At first, analysts thought it was child's play, but after comparing it to the crime scene, they realized that the markings could reveal where the boys had been, shortcuts, wooded areas around town, and where the killer had chosen to meet up. The chilling story began to reveal details about the killer. Someone smarter, more observant, and more terrifying than the community had ever imagined. The FBI began analyzing fingerprints and DNA samples, comparing them to criminal databases, looking for anyone who had been near the scene in the months before. Criminal psychologists began to build a profile of the killer, someone familiar with children, manipulative, and capable of operating quietly without being detected. However, alongside the seriousness are humorous situations that the narrator does not forget to emphasize. If this were a movie, there would definitely be a scene of running away in the woods, and there would be a boy screaming, "No, he's coming." But in real life, there is no suspenseful background music, just the rustling of leaves and fear creeping in with every breath. This interweaving of horror and humor helps viewers not to be overwhelmed, but still maintains a tense, suspenseful rhythm. An important turning point comes when the FBI finds a strange trace on Damien's sleeve, a strand of hair that does not belong to the three boys. Preliminary analysis shows that this is the hair of an adult, but the gender is not yet determined. This result opens up a completely new direction of investigation. The killer not only knew the three boys, but also left physical traces. This is an important clue, marking the first step from speculation to real evidence. Meanwhile, public opinion is constantly boiling. Newspapers published articles about the mystery man, the murderer in the peaceful community, and rumors grew. The online community began to spread theories, even setting up forums to discuss the case. Some people imagined bizarre scenarios. The killer was an alien, a demon, or a magician who disappeared in the woods. Although it sounded funny, the reality was that public opinion put a lot of pressure on investigators, forcing them to work faster and more accurately. The police and the FBI continued to expand the scope of the investigation. They considered all the relationships of the victims, from extended family, friends, neighbors, to people the boys had met at school, at the grocery store, or even on the street. They interviewed people, created a relationship map, looked for unusual behavior. Each person was an important link in the chain of events that led to this tragedy. Another strange detail appeared. Some witnesses said they saw a man appear near the place where the three boys went missing in the previous days. He was wearing a dark shirt, a hat, and acted very normally, as if he was walking, but his eyes made people feel uneasy. The FBI immediately put this detail into the file, examined security cameras, and checked vehicles passing through the area. Meanwhile, psychological analysis continued to reveal the killer could be someone who lived in the community, understood the habits of children, had the ability to hide his behavior, and mislead people. This forces the police to reconsider all their previous theories about the stranger and to start looking at people who had close contact with the three boys. The narrator interjects in a tone that is both humorous and creepy. At this point, if you were a neighbor, you would probably start asking yourself, did I lock my door? Or should I take a baseball bat when I go for a walk? It's true that when crime occurs, peace disappears in an instant. Chapter 2 gradually reaches its climax when the FBI discovers a crucial connection between the victims and a mysterious hobby group that the three boys belong to. What seemed like small clues, a game, a note, a conversation, now become the key. All the evidence is analyzed, combined with psychological data and social history, creating the first picture of the killer. At the end of the chapter, the narrator again emphasizes the humorous and suspenseful tone. And here, my friends, we have just touched the surface of the mystery. The next step will keep you glued to the screen, as the FBI is about to enter the most gruesome details, the most intense investigations, and the most unexpected surprises that even the three boys did not see coming. Hold on to your seats, because Chapter 3 will take us to the heart of this darkness, where every detail can change the course of the case. As night fell over West Memphis, the town did not sleep. The streetlights cast thin, razor-sharp streaks of light across the wet pavement, reflecting the turmoil of the residents. The wind whistled through the old trees, mixed with the sounds of insects and the occasional barking dog in the distance, creating an eerie soundtrack, as if the woods were whispering secrets known only to the killer. At the makeshift command center, the FBI and local police gathered, with large maps spread out on tables, fragments of evidence, fingerprints, hair samples, and notes marked in red, blue, and black pens. Every clue was meticulously analyzed. Mud stains on shoes, animal tracks, scratches on trees, all were noted. An image analyst stood in front of a computer screen, zooming in on every detail, muttering, "If the killer left a little mud trail here, he must have walked this road at least 3 times." And sure enough, those seemingly ordinary steps begin to reveal deliberate actions, creating a sophisticated map of where the 3 boys have been and where the killer has chosen to set off the tragedy. The narrator interjects with a playful tone. "You know, if I told you about the scene where the investigators bent down to examine each speck of mud, you would think they were picking up golf balls. But in reality, each speck of mud could make you the next murderer, or at least help solve the case." A turning point came when the analysis of the hair sample discovered in Chapter 2 was completed. The hair belonged to a man between the ages of 25 and 35, with no criminal record, who lived near the woods and who had worked near local schools. This evidence led the police to screen hundreds of people, and suspicions began to fall on seemingly ordinary people. Meanwhile, witnesses gradually recalled seemingly small but important details. A man asking about the boy's father's school schedule, a strange car appearing near the playground, a figure standing at the edge of the woods watching the children. Each account was carefully recorded, and the FBI began to build a diagram of the killer's behavior. He was not just observing, but planning meticulously, choosing the time, place, and even the psychology of the victims. But not only was the investigation serious, humorous situations still crept in. A rookie cop almost got caught in a wild animal trap, tumbling into the mud, making the entire command room laugh. If this were a horror movie, that scene would definitely have a loud drum beat, the narrator said, with a light laugh amid the tension. Investigating the criminal psychology became extremely important. The FBI began to build a profile of the killer, someone intelligent, able to manipulate and predict children, familiar with the woods, and well-versed in concealment. Every little move was analyzed. The way he moved, the timing, even the way he left behind clues to throw them off course. Psychologists concluded that the killer was not impulsive, but rather planned, patient, and extremely dangerous. At the same time, footage from security cameras around town was reviewed. Some of the videos showed silhouettes moving by, but not clearly enough to identify them. Investigators had to use advanced techniques, zooming in, filtering out noise, and stitching frames together to reconstruct the shape, speed, and direction of movement. Every second of the video was played back over and over again, as if flipping through the pages of a vivid horror novel. Another creepy detail emerged. While investigating the places the 3 boys frequented, the FBI found a tree hollow with small traces of activity, pieces of paper, candy wrappers, even a button. This led them to believe that the killer had been following the victims for a long time, with preparation and the ability to stick close. The narrator did not forget to add a humorous tone. "If I were the boy in the group, I would definitely never leave a button behind. But sorry, boys, there's not always a chance to avoid stalkers. Meanwhile, public pressure increased. The press continuously updated theories about the killer, from aliens, unknown strangers, to familiar neighbors. Some residents began to install cameras around their homes, check each other's cars, and even set up spontaneous patrols throughout the area. The tension mixed with humor creates an atmosphere that is both creepy and intimate for the audience, making them both scared and curious to follow every development. The climax begins to form when the FBI discovers an unexpected connection. A group of young people in the town, with a strange hobby related to magical symbols, have appeared near the scene before the boys disappeared. Investigators begin to question them, to find out if they are related to the case. Each answer is carefully analyzed, combined with physical and psychological evidence. A confrontation scene appears. The suspects are brought into an interrogation room, where cold light falls on the table. The FBI asks careful questions, sometimes pressing, sometimes listening in silence. The narrator interjected in a tone that was both humorous and tense. If this were a movie, there would be a slow-motion camera panning to the suspect's eyes and a soundtrack that would be both thrilling and make you want to jump in your seat. But in real life, there is no soundtrack, just sweat, eyes, and fear that permeates every detail. The physical evidence, from DNA samples, traces on clothing, scratches on trees, and information from witnesses, began to fit together. A picture of the killer emerged, someone intelligent, meticulous, and dangerous. Previous theories about the stranger were incorrect. Instead, the killer could be a familiar member of the community, someone everyone trusted but with an unbelievably sinister potential. As things stand, small details emerge from school records, the boys' personal interests, and conversations with friends, helping the FBI find weaknesses in the killer's behavior. One boy once told a friend about meeting a strange man near his house, a detail that seemed meaningless, but now becomes a vital clue. At the end of the chapter, the narrator adds a touch of suspense and humor. And now, my friends, we're closer than ever to the killer. But be careful, because in Chapter 4, the darkness will reveal the most. As dawn broke, a faint light filtered through the trees of West Memphis, illuminating the deserted streets and cracked walls of homes that seemed to be filled with unsolved mysteries. In the command center, the FBI and local police have been up all night, poring over every clue, every camera footage, every physical evidence report. The conference table was covered with files, maps, and crumbling notes, where every little detail was considered a priceless treasure. Forensic experts were comparing DNA samples, analyzing mud stains, pieces of fabric, and even tiny marks on the three boys' fingernails. Each detail was carefully photographed, meticulously analyzed, and combined with witness records to create a vivid picture of the victim's final hours. The narrator interjects, "If you think they just sit around drinking coffee and typing, you're wrong. Every scrap of paper, every little grain of mud can be the key to unlocking the door to the killer." That's how investigative work can be dirty, but extremely important. A turning point comes when the investigation team receives an unexpected piece of intelligence from a local resident. They see a strange man often appearing around the woods before the boys disappeared. This man has a distinctive gait, walks almost silently, and is always observing everything around him. The FBI quickly identifies him, but is immediately faced with the reality. This is a well-known citizen in the community, known and trusted by everyone. Meanwhile, investigators patrol the woods, carrying high-powered flashlights, gloves, and tracking devices. They found torn cloth, scratches on the tree, and small holes at the base of the tree that showed signs of temporary use. These seemingly small details revealed the killer's meticulousness. He had planned, chosen the time and place, and even knew how to conceal his actions so as not to be detected. A carefully prepared confrontation scene took place. The suspects were brought into the interrogation room. Cold lights were directed at the table. The FBI asked questions at a slow but intense pace. Every word was recorded and carefully observed. The narrator interjected jokingly, If you think this is like a Hollywood movie with creepy background music, well, it's true, but real life is much creepier. There's no music, just cold light, sweat, and searching eyes. In the interrogation room, the killer pretended to cooperate, answering questions politely, but his eyes could not hide the tension. Behavioral analysts recognized the familiar signs. Small gestures, sidelong glances, slight hand twitches, all of which suggested he was hiding something. The FBI began asking contradictory questions, combined with the evidence they had collected, to choke off his escape route. Outside the interrogation room, police patrolled the neighborhood, taking note of any strange movements. A security camera captured an unfamiliar car stopping in front of a resident's house, with a shadowy figure sitting inside looking around. This sign was immediately connected to previous information, helping the FBI build a more accurate diagram of the killer's behavior. Small but important clues began to fit together. Hair samples, mud stains, video footage, witness statements. Details that had seemed meaningless before now became important links. You see, the narrator emphasizes, in a case, nothing is meaningless. A stray hair, a strange footstep, or even a wink, all can become the key to unlocking the door to truth. As the investigation progresses, public pressure mounts. The press continuously reports on the case, and the townspeople are more tense and vigilant than ever. Parents closely monitor their children, install cameras around their homes, and some form patrol groups. The atmosphere is both eerie and slightly humorous, as the narrator interjects. Who would have thought that in a small town, people would turn into amateur detectives, carrying sticks, flashlights, and sometimes bloodhounds? A key clue emerges. During the analysis of the suspect's cell phone data, investigators discover that he has accessed websites about black magic and the occult, and even chatted with some boys online. This was a major breakthrough, helping the FBI build a more detailed psychological profile and determine the level of danger of the killer. Meanwhile, the tense confrontation continued. The killer was put in many pressure situations, with questions pouring in about his actions before the boys disappeared. Initially, he was calm, answering politely, but when the physical evidence was placed before his eyes began to waver. A few times he almost admitted, but quickly regained his composure. The narrator emphasized, confronting the FBI is no joke. 1 second of inattention and all the secrets will be revealed, and your heart rate can jump to your throat. The chapter climaxes when the clues, from witness statements, phone records, DNA samples, mudslides, and CCTV footage, all come together. The FBI has determined the killer's behavior, his route, the time of the attack, and even his motive. The tension is at its peak as the investigators prepare for the final confrontation, where the killer will be confronted with irrefutable evidence. The narrator sums up the climactic mood with a playful aside. And now, you see the big picture. But be careful. Chapter 5 is the final confrontation, where every mystery is solved, every word is revealed, and you will see whether justice is served for the 3 West Memphis boys. If you think you're scared enough, brace. The lights in the interrogation room were focused on the table, highlighting every wrinkle, every bead of sweat on the foreheads of the investigators. The room was so quiet that you could hear the ticking of the clock, mixed with the heavy breathing of the suspect, who had become the center of attention for the entire town of West Memphis over the past few weeks. The FBI, behavioral analysts, and local police focused on every detail, preparing for the decisive confrontation. The narrator chimed in, his voice playful but still full of suspense. If you thought Hollywood was all about dramatic confrontations, congratulations. Real life is sometimes more dramatic. There was no background music, no slow motion, just cold lights and the cold eyes of the FBI. Over the past few weeks, every clue from DNA, mudslides, camera footage, to phone data had been compiled, analyzed, and cross-checked. Forensic experts concluded that the physical evidence at the scene and the scratches on the tree trunks not only matched the suspect, but also showed a deliberate pattern of behavior. The perpetrator had carefully planned, chosen the time and place, and taken steps to conceal his actions. But today, all the secrets were about to be revealed. The confrontation began. The FBI asked a series of questions, and every little detail was brought up, from appearances near the woods, suspicious behavior, to online connections. The suspect began to fidget, his eyes squinting, his hands twitching slightly. The narrator chimed in with a cheerful voice. You see, cold light can make a lot of people lose their composure, especially when you know that the FBI can reconstruct your behavior minute by minute. A turning point came when phone data analysts discovered the suspect's online conversations with teenagers in the town, containing signs of power, control, and manipulation. This was the key to helping investigators determine a motive. The killer had tried to delete the chats, but forensic technology missed nothing. Every message, every character was preserved, becoming irrefutable evidence. Meanwhile, local police continued to search the suspect locations, discovering more pieces of fabric, dried blood, and objects related to the three boys. The previously worthless scraps now became important links, helping the FBI reconstruct the killer's entire journey. The narrator chimed in with a witty tone. A seemingly useless button or piece of scrap paper turned out to be more important than scrolling through TikTok without reading the comments. The confrontation reached its climax when the FBI presented the suspect with physical evidence: mud stains that matched his shoes, pieces of fabric from the crime scene, and online chats. He initially tried to deny it, but each piece of evidence was inserted into the timeline and behavior, leaving him with nowhere to hide. As the pressure mounted, the suspect began to admit bits and pieces, while keeping important details under wraps. The narrator emphasized, you see, justice is sometimes a puzzle. Every piece needs to fall into place, and today, the final picture is taking shape. Meanwhile, behavioral experts explained the killer's motives. He was obsessed with power, control, and crime. The combination of online and on-site behavior formed a consistent pattern, suggesting that the killer was not acting randomly, but meticulously planned. The FBI determined that he chose the three boys because of their vulnerability and ability to manipulate, carefully planning to avoid detection. The social pressure in West Memphis is also at its peak. The press is constantly updating, the community is worried and angry. The victims' families follow every development, both pained and hopeful that justice will be served. The narrator interjects with a joking tone. If you think the community will be quiet, you're wrong. Everyone wants to know the truth, and sometimes they know more details than the investigators. Finally, the decisive confrontation takes place. The FBI questions every minute and hour before the boys disappeared. The evidence piles up, the suspect cannot deny. His eyes waver, his words falter, and he finally admits to all the crimes, revealing details of how he carried them out and covered them up. The narrator interjects. Finally, all the mysteries are revealed. Justice is no longer a question, but an answer, cold, serious, and undeniable. The final details are revealed. The three unfortunate boys who encounter the killer, his motives, his choice of location, time, and cover-up are all revealed. Forensic experts conclude that all the clues match the testimony, digital data, and witnesses, forming a complete picture. Chapter 5 ends with the suspect being let out, the morning light shining in as a symbol of the end of a long, dark night. The narrator concludes, and that is the truth. All the mysteries of the West Memphis Three have been revealed. But my friends, the story is not over yet. Part 2, the satanic panic, will take us deeper into the social context, the misunderstandings, the rumors, and whether true justice will be served. Hit the follow button, turn on notifications, and prepare for more dramatic episodes, where truth and paranoia intertwine, and together we will discover whether society can stand this truth. Subscribe and turn on notifications now, so you don't miss Part 2, the satanic panic, where all the rumors and paranoia surrounding the West Memphis Three are exposed. You followed this far, but the story doesn't stop there. Part 2 will take you into the public psyche, the false accusations, and the journey to find true justice. Click now to continue the investigation.